We're going live, and
Let's
we're
go.
we're live. Just a minute or two late, but I think we're definitely worth the wait.
We'll try to be.
We'll try to be. We'll see. So, hey everyone joining us. We are so excited about our topic today: New Year's resolutions, and also facing the unknown, which I think are fun topics. And I learned something about myself when we started talking about this. But before we dive into that, let's tell everybody who's here. So, Jenny, tell everybody about you.
Hello, Jenny Von Quarter, LinkedIn learning instructor in the data space and a number of other spaces too, including the Power Platform and SharePoint. And to start a trend, just back from time in Mexico. Bill?
Um,
Dot. A little foreshadowing there. Yeah, hi, I'm Bill Shander. I am also a LinkedIn learning instructor, and it's funny, the other day someone asked me, oh, what do you do? And I was like, I'm like a teacher. Like, I can never explain what I do, but I'm an information designer is the title that I use for people like our audience who know what that means. But I mostly do, I'm an educator is the other word that I use a lot these days. And also recently back from Mexico. Yes.
awesome, awesome. I'm
Robin,
feeling a little
have you been
jealous.
in Mexico?
Yeah, I haven't been. I'm a little bit jealous. I think I need to be the next one to go and come back.
You
So,
do.
yeah, I currently right now, well, Robin Hunt with Think Data Solutions. Sometimes I'm a CEO, sometimes I'm a data analyst, sometimes I'm a data engineer, sometimes I'm a janitor. Could be anybody's guess on what I'm doing that day. But today I'm actually based in Houston, Texas. I've had a fantastic time while I've been here. I'm actually in a location called Common Desk on the Post Oak Boulevard down in the Galleria area of Houston. So,
Ah,
yeah, I was excited to be here. And I had dinner with Helen Wall last night, which was a lot of fun. I'm thinking, I wish we could have gotten Helen in here, but I'm thinking she may be called into that national outage we've been hearing about on AT&T. So interesting to come news on that. Hey, let's just jump in. Oh, go ahead.
I think there's a very important comment in the comments that needs to
Oh,
be
let me say it. I
addressed.
don't have them turned on.
where are the tacos? The tacos, my friend, are everywhere.
We love tacos. I had a breakfast taco yesterday. It was pretty phenomenal. Like, you know, and I don't know. I actually enjoy driving around and seeing tacos literally everywhere here in this area.
Mhm.
That is exciting because I love like Bill Shander loves burritos. I love tacos.
And for
Ah,
me, burritos are just a shorthand for all Mexican food because I also love tacos. It's on a par. I mean, it's tacos, ceviche, burritos. It's all good.
It's all
shrimp,
good. So
shrimp,
yeah, I
shrimp
see.
agua chile. Shrimp agua chile.
Oh,
Mm.
yum. Well,
Yeah.
Helen and I had dinner last night. I couldn't pronounce most of it, but I can tell you I could eat every bit of it. It was amazing. So I
Very
see we
good.
have comments coming in here too. So definitely drop where you're coming from so we can know where you're at. And we're glad that you're here.
You could
Okay.
you could turn that around. That sentence is equally valid if you say, "Please let us know where you're at, so we know where you're coming from."
Right. There you go.
One
There
of
you
them is
go.
a cultural statement. One is a geographic statement. Those are interesting. I like
I
that.
like it. I like it. You can definitely tell we're data people
We
just by
are.
the fact that you said that. That's amazing. So I want to talk about New Year's resolutions first because we got into this topic last time we were together talking, which I really enjoy our private conversations we get to have in preparation for these things. But we were talking about New Year's resolutions, and I learned something valuable about myself. I have New Year's resolutions. I really always thought I really didn't do that, but in thinking about it, I actually do have New Year's resolutions, but
Oh,
they're not like the same thing I think of New Year's resolutions. And maybe it's not even resolutions, maybe I just have New Year's traditions. And so we were talking about black eyed peas because in the South, and maybe other places in the country, but definitely in the South, like you eat black eyed peas on New Year's Day. And if you're lucky enough, you also eat cornbread. But it's the black eyed peas that give you luck. So I don't know if that's everywhere, but I do know that's where I'm from. And it's always been like that. My mother, like literally, if she's like asking me weeks beforehand, do you have black eyed peas? I'm going to make you black eyed peas, whatever. So I know I got to eat black eyed peas. My kids do not want to eat black eyed peas. So I realized in preparing for this, I've actually established my own traditions because I always eat my kids black eyed peas for them. And in the last 3 years, I usually record a black eyed peas eating video and send it to the people I'm eating black eyed peas for. Except for this year, I ate the black eyed peas for my kids and I sent y'all the video. And I think I may post the video, but I didn't have any makeup on. So I'm still debating that. I'm still trying to decide if I want to do that. So, yeah. And then, Jenny, you told me something fascinating for your New Year's this year.
Right, because I was in Playa del Carmen in Mexico, and the tradition there is you get 12 grapes, and at midnight or around just at midnight, the first thing you do at midnight is you eat each of your grapes, and you make a wish for each one of your grapes, which could be resolutions. It could be things you resolved about. So which means that people are thinking about their dozen before they get there. And I was like, oh, I forgot this part. So everybody else is out in the street lighting off firecrackers, and I'm still like for 7, But yeah, the idea is that you're wishing your way into the new year. You're bringing yourself luck along with that, which I think is a good thing.
That's awesome. Bill, how about you? Do you have any New Year's traditions or standard New Year's resolutions?
I do not ever have any resolutions. I've never done resolutions. I definitely, the new year definitely feels like a fresh start. And I always have like the big picture, thinking about the year. I'm also not much of a goal setter normally. So it's not like I have some master plan for the year at the new year. But I have to circle back to both of yours because I hear both of those and I have more questions and thoughts. So first of all, I want to know, and I'll ask both of them and then you guys can decide how to respond. I want to know, where does the black eyed peas equals good luck tradition comes from? A. And B, and I think we talked about this when we first learned about the 12 grapes. When I've heard 12 grapes, I immediately assumed that was 1 grape per month. And then my brain went beyond that and immediately said, okay, so you get a fresh grape on January 1st. And then by February 1st, it's kind of a yuckier grape. Maybe it's like, you're sort of easing into the year. And by September, October, they're like maybe turning into raisins if you live somewhere sunny. So I had this whole little mini story in my head for about 10 seconds, imagining what that 12 grapes spread out over an entire year might look like. None of which was true because obviously you eat them all at once. But so I'm also curious to know from Ginny where that comes from and if she knows.
I do not know where it comes from. It's when you were saying, and then I thought about, because the liturgical year and the liturgical symbolism gets wound up so much that the 12 months makes sense, but weirdly, so would something like 12 apostles.
Yeah.
So I have no clue. I'll have to learn about it.
But that was a tradition like when you were a kid, wherever you grew up in your family.
No, this is purely a Mexican tradition.
Okay.
The grapes, for me, my exposure to the grape tradition is as a Mexican tradition.
Oh, okay.
How about that?
Yeah.
I don't know the origin of the black eyed peas myself, but I'm pretty sure there's a strong historical origin for black eyed peas. So I don't know. I'll dig in and answer to that. It came from being passed down generationally from my family. Like the whole family does it. They all talk about it. It's like it's a real thing for them. And for me, I mean, obviously I'm eating the black eyed peas, like literally 3 of them. Mine and my 2 kids. And if I want them to have super good luck, I might eat like a basic bite 3 times, which I think is what was in the video this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I like the idea of a fresh start. Like, I think the new year is a reset. I would imagine a lot of people like the new year reset. I don't know that I necessarily set resolutions because maybe I used to do that, but I would always seem to not follow through on those. And so then it would just get depressing. And as a matter of fact, I actually went and looked this up, trying to determine like what are the top failed resolutions. And that was such a depressing list. I just said I'm not going down this path any further. So a lot of times I think people, we set these resolutions and then we don't follow through with them. But some people really like to set them. And I'm sure, like, have you ever like set a goal and followed it through? Sure, I do that all the time.
Yeah.
And
Actually, I like
what a New Year's
Thomas's
resolution
comment. Check out Thomas's comment. Used to do our annual goal planning. Now I select a single word or phrase to keep me focused for the year. So it's almost like a mantra, just sort of
Yeah.
sticking around to sort of guide you. I like that approach.
I like that too. I definitely like that too.
The 12 grapes comes from Spain,
Okay.
and I don't know why in Spain, but they're actually called the 12 grapes of luck.
So I would say anybody that's got a tradition that you do for New Year's, whether it be something that's a tradition across the sphere, or if it's just something in your family, throw it into the comments. I think it would be interesting to see how people think about their traditions and their resolutions. So
Cool.
one of the things that most people I think intend to do every new year is like they're going to learn a new skill or they're going to study something deeper. And so I want us to talk a little bit about like some of the things that the 3 of us are trying to dig in professionally to this year and see what we have on our plates for the year for learning. So one of the things that hit me when I was thinking through this today is like, I have so many exciting projects that are coming that are going to deep dive me into different things like people analytics and scheduling manpower. And so it's kind of like my plan for the year is learning about those things, but it's not driven by I desire to go learn about people analytics. It's I've got to go work on a people analytics project, use my skill set, and I'm going to learn a lot about people analytics and scheduling along the way. So I don't know. It was just interesting for me to think like my plan is kind of laid out for me based on the efforts of last year. And that's kind of how I plan my learning. I hadn't really thought about it that way. Jenny, what about you?
So this is interesting because for me, in terms of planning my learning, when I got to a point where I didn't necessarily need more clients, so I was really picky about my new clients, I actually chose clients based on whether I could learn anything new there.
Love that.
Right? So
Yes.
it was like, oh, here's a market vertical I know absolutely nothing about. Oh, wow, I could go do this work for an award-winning company in an area that I'm really light on, So for me, that the idea of learning as you're going sort of thing that you do in a project is also real valuable to me.
Yeah.
And then there is a piece of you have to stick with it because they're going to pay you. You're going to deliver product for them. It's not like you're going to go, oh, it turns out that was dull. I just decided to drop it. I mean, it has this built-in commitment, that other New Year's resolutions don't necessarily have, right? You have a contract.
Oh, that's very true. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah,
you're going to stay with it.
Yeah.
So the only choice you have after that, maybe as a practitioner, is do I vendor this out to somebody else? Do I assign this really hard part to somebody else on my staff? Or is this an opportunity for me to learn something really cool?
I think it's valuable though to say that kind of stuff out loud, Jenny, because like maybe you have this data skill set, you want to go and freelance, you want to be a contractor, I think really thinking ahead of, like, you may not have the luxury of selecting your projects or picking your customers at the beginning, but
Right.
you always have the luxury of controlling, like, how much time, like, as long as you're telling that customer up front, let's try this for 3 months, 6 months. But yeah, don't go get into a 2-year contract and you hadn't even thought through, like, if you're going to be able to stick with it. Like, you have, like, once you're committed, you're committed.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, it's interesting from a contracting point of view. How about
Yeah.
you, Bill? You got some plans for learning this year?
Yeah, so first of all, just to agree with you both. So yeah, most of my learning professionally has come, yeah, because I had to, like, or it was because, yes, this is happening, so I got to learn this thing.
Yep.
And to Ginny's point specifically, like I've sort of jumped off the cliff, and the only way to not fall, I need the net, and the net is the learning. Like I've definitely agreed to do projects based on, oh, I can probably figure that out. And then, I always have, but it's been scary at times. But then on top of that, this year, yeah, so like I guess I can think of three things specifically that I'm learning this year. One is, so I just launched a new course on LinkedIn Learning it's about Observable, which is a
Oh yeah,
cloud-based computing platform for data visualization, which is
I
a super
watched
cool
it.
platform. Oh, you did? Nice.
I did watch it.
It's a cool tool.
It's
And
definitely-
literally last week, like a few days ago, they launched Observable 2.0. And so like most of what the course covered hasn't changed because the notebook-based thing is what it is.
Mhm.
But they've added this whole new thing called Observable Framework, which allows you to create really full-on dashboards, very user-friendly, client-facing things, mostly in code. So I'm going to definitely learn that this year for sure. I'm also going to learn. So I'm actually writing a book this year, which we can talk more about later. And so I'm doing a lot of research into that topic that the book is going to be about. So that's a learning journey. It's something that I've been spending 30 years learning, and I'm going to be honing in on some particular aspects of it. And I'm also for the fun part. So you said that we're mostly learning because we kind of have to. I also decided a few years ago, really mostly for fun. It is practical because we go there a lot, but to learn Thai, the Thai language, and it's practical. We go there a lot. My wife has family there, etc. But it's become a fun thing because we don't go there enough, and everybody there speaks English. So I almost never even use it when I'm there. So it's mostly because I enjoy doing it, and because we just recently went to Mexico. We're talking about maybe going there more, and maybe I'll learn Spanish too. But we'll see.
That's awesome.
Bueno. Muy bueno.
I like it.
See.
So I'm fascinated by learning languages, right? Like I spent years trying to learn French and never learned French really, right? But it is fascinating to try to take on a language, but also like it can be very difficult depending on your stage of life.
Yeah.
Learning a second language when you're in your youth, like in brain development, like it's totally different than trying to pick it up much later in life. So I'm fascinated by it, but I always think, I don't know if I've got, like, this is to Jenny's point earlier about making the commitment. Like, I think something would have to make me make that commitment. Like, you have a reason to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to figure out, like, can I even allot the brain space to do it, even with the desire to do it? It's like you can desire to want to learn something, but then also not have adequate time to actually tackle it and be effective with it. I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
Well, I can
Go
tell
ahead.
you the be effective part. No. I'm not at all effective at it. And so I think that's the first thing is that, yeah, because I am older, I had to, and I do, like, I know, I mean, I shouldn't say I know, maybe one day I'll be fluent, but sure seems unlikely at this point. And like, but I'm adding words. My vocabulary is growing.
Oh, that's awesome.
And a phrase or two here and there. What I'm still terrible at and may never improve is listening comprehension. I'll catch a word or two here or there, but you know what? Even that's better than it was a year ago. So, yeah, I'm terrible at it, and I'll probably continue to be terrible at it for a very, very, very long time. but I am enjoying it anyways. And so, yeah, that's where
That's
it's
awesome.
fun. So I guess I'm going to do it. But yeah, I don't have high expectations for myself.
I
Do
know what
have
you
high
mean,
expectations? That's great.
Bill, about all of your wife's relatives speak Thai anyway, and so you go and they take care of that for you. On the trip I just got back from, so what I would say is that my cousin's English skills are really are quite good. His daughters are really good, and his wife is starting to learn English. So we kind of have this mixed mashup that we do where we speak half in Spanish, and like sometimes we'll be texting each other, and I'm texting in Spanish and she's texting in English, which is pretty funny. But we went on a trip for 5 days where most of the people did not speak English at all. And you learn really fast in that environment. I mean, it's the same environment we've all just talked about loving, right? Is you drop yourself in and you have to learn.
Right.
And so if you have to learn, then you do. And I think that those immersion experiences sort of spread out. I'm not for constant immersion learning. My first week of Spanish school in Mexico, which was like more than a decade ago, I cried every night after class. Oh, no. I was so frustrated. Okay.
Wow.
Every single night. But on the other hand, I had this really good start, and it turned out on the very last day of class, because I would ask this guy a question, and he, like, if I spoke English, it was like the very last day of class. He asked me, you go through the thing, you know, my name is, this is where I'm from. And he looks up and in English, he says, in English, this guy who had been like totally not English for a week. Okay. He looked at me and he said, do they have Tim Hortons in Michigan? Like, he went to McGill. Give me a break. Okay. Okay. But I had a week every day of 6 hours of immersion, and you know, you start somewhere, right?
That's awesome.
You start somewhere.
You talking about Tim Hortons, the coffee?
Yeah,
man, I love Tim Hortons. Like, I don't really love to drink coffee out of a Keurig because that just seems fake to me. But like, if you put a Tim Hortons K cup in there, it's actually like it doesn't taste like pencil shaving. So I'm familiar with Tim Hortons because of that. Hey, so one thing I put in our comments, I wanted to show this from Alessandra about a driver for learning a second language being, if you want to move forward in your career, you have a driver to learn that. I think that is a beautiful reason to learn anything, is that we're doing this stuff so we can move forward in our career. So this is in regards to a second language, but it's actually a very beautiful sentiment about a driver to learn just for your career. So thanks for that comment there. I loved that. So Jenny, you mentioned using conferences as a method for learning. So let's kind of talk a little bit about methods for learning, because I know I've got a particular learning style, and after I know you guys relate to this, we've trained thousands of people in person. Like, everybody learns differently. Yes. And they take different approaches. So Jenny, kind of break down like some of your either thoughts on what you see people do, or even your own personal methods on learning, on how you like to learn.
Well, how I like to learn is sort of a pragmatic approach to understanding my own laziness at this point in my life, right? Because I could be learning 8 hours every day. I could go in, and there was a time in my life when I did that. There was a time in my life that I was a really great student and I loved learning. And yet I find that given the choice between binge watching True Detective Night Country for the last 3 nights, or learning something, and it's very good, and learning something new, okay, it's like there's an attraction of everything else. So conferences, in-person conferences have always been a way that I learn. I'll even like take extra stuff to the conference with me. I'll take the book on the topic that I haven't made time for.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Projects I want to work on. And my intention is that really is like a school experience for me. I go to conferences, I go to sessions, I take copious notes, I go to workshops so that And I'm looking for at conferences. I just don't go to any conference. I go to conferences and the things I have to learn about. But part of it is to look for not just what's new, but I'm always so struck when I go to a conference and I'll go to a session about something I know pretty well, or maybe even really well, but by a presenter who I really think highly of. And so somebody who turns my head every single time I go to one of her sessions is April Dunham.
Okay.
And she works in the Power Platform area, and she'll just approach something in a way I would never think of approaching it. And so there's this sort of this reset of there are other ways to think about the software other than how I think about the software, or other ways to think about a process other than my way. So I try to turn conferences, 2 or 3 of them a week into 2 or 3 weeks of really deep learning.
That's awesome.
And I always make time afterwards to be able to integrate and take notes. And then I send notes out to people, about things that they might want to know about or what coming trends are. That was a trend. So I'll tell you a thing you can only learn at a conference if you go in person. Is a few years ago when Microsoft Teams launched, I was at I don't know if it was Ignite or the predecessor of Ignite that year. And I started looking at the conference schedule when they were adding things. And I noticed that the rooms that had people standing outside of them waiting to get in and that they were turning people away from were all of the Microsoft Teams presentations.
Huh.
And it's like, there's your experiential graph. The hallway is still full of people. Where are they trying to go?
Mm-hmm.
And I came back and wrote to the content editors at LinkedIn Learning. I said, Microsoft Teams is going to be hot, whether we know it or not. Right? So there's the things you learn that are the unintentional curriculum. Right?
I love that.
Right? There was never anything that said Microsoft Teams is going places, and that's the theme of this conference. But ultimately, it was. Right? And I didn't learn it because they told me. I learned it because I saw it.
This is so two thoughts here I have is one, so much of my career when people would go to conferences, it was like, oh man, the company's going to pay for me to be at this conference for a week and I'm going to be able to hang out with you. And they're doing all the fun stuff. They never really strategically planned for the learning. So you clearly you said, I'm going to take my time to go to this conference. I'm going to go get it this way, and you're thoughtful about it. And I think that's really key on I find myself, I present at conferences. And even at this point, I'm like, am I really getting anything out of presenting at this conference? Is this like the right place for me to be? Is this the right level? I'm looking at it from that view. But yeah, I think it would be fun for this year to dive in and be like, where is Jenny going to be this year? What is Jenny learning this year? And then just tag teaming along with you.
Well, I already told you where I'm going next month, right? I already told you where I'm going next month.
Yes.
Microsoft Fabric and AI conference.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be, it'll be something.
It'll be something.
Fun. We'll learn something. Right?
We'll learn something. That's
if
right.
you and I are the only people there, we'll learn that Fabric rollout isn't going to happen.
Scare all the presenters. We're going to come in and be like, okay.
So we got all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think you have to be intentional. And I know I go to conferences where a lot of the people there, they think it's a vacation. A conference is a way that organizations reward developers by giving them time off.
Yeah.
And for a while, I was actually in charge of sort of IT development for one of the Fortune 1000 companies for maybe 2 years. And the first time that I actually had a project that Microsoft was paying for my people to go, except for their hotels and travel, all the rest of it was comped.
Yep.
And I'm looking for 4 people who want to go to this conference, and here's the job description. And people were so angry at me because it was like job description. And it's like, yeah, you're going to come back and you're going to train everybody else. And there's this whole list of stuff that I routinely do. And it's like, well, we're going to a conference. And I said, yeah, you're going to a conference. Well, why do we have to do this? I said, you don't. Next.
Yeah. It's not for you. Most people they're planning for the luau. You know what I mean? They're like,
or the free beer night.
Yeah.
Mandatory free beer night.
Yes. Everybody's coming to the, but I think there are a lot of really great conferences out there with a lot of really great workshops you know, some of us and all of us are on that conference or somewhere. So like, you know, if we're going in to present something, we're there to like intentionally teach something. So there's a valuable opportunity that's lost there by not being intentional and strategic about it.
Right.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Right.
So Bill, how often do you love the things you have to learn?
I guess what I would say is that I end up loving it or I stop learning it.
Oh, I like
You know,
that.
like there have
End
definitely
up
been things that I
loving
started
it
to learn.
or stop learning it.
Yeah, and I
That's
can give
true.
like 20 examples. I mean, not literally 20, but like I started to learn Ruby on Rails years ago, and I knew PHP and a couple of other backend
Yeah.
languages, and I just didn't like it, so I stopped it. I started to learn, like React framework, the more modern thing, and I just didn't like it. Just drove me crazy.
Yeah.
And I started to learn Svelte, which is a newer
Mhm.
reactive front end framework, sort of like React, and I like it, so I kept learning it. So like, yeah, like the enjoyment of it determines whether I'm actually going to follow through.
That's amazing. It's also a luxury of being at this point in your career.
Definitely true.
So,
And it's also luxury to what you said earlier. Like I didn't sign a contract for like a 2-year engagement doing React. And if I had, boy, I probably would have learned it and I probably would have learned to love it, but I wasn't motivated enough to get there.
yeah. So take us back to young. Well, you're young now. Take us back to early. Yeah. Take us back to early. I'm a work in progress, people. I try.
Very kind, very kind.
I try. You
Now-
saw the Black Eyed Pea video. It's really lucky I can even do this at all. So
Well-
let me go back and rephrase. Early
I-
professional. Yeah.
I just need to say that at this point, the soundtrack in my head is Fun with Janelle Monáe, right? Doing Tonight We Are Young. Okay, because we're all young. Let's just be young. We're good.
Let's just be
Back to
young,
you, Robin.
permanently.
That's right.
So early professional Bill Shander navigating the framework of a career. None of us really fully thought and intended everything to go the way it did. So like, how'd you navigate that on the early days when you were having to learn things as a part of your domain knowledge, but maybe didn't like it because you didn't have the luxury of going,
Yeah.
you know, how did you get through that? Like, how did you push through those hard moments where you had to learn things that, you know, maybe foundational, you just need to know them, but they're like the driest topics on earth?
So I can tell you, I mean, like, I guess I probably should rephrase what I said a little bit or add on to it because I think I did partially say this. When you have to learn it, eventually you probably learn to love it. Hopefully. And I think the best example I can give is this. Like when I very first started my company 30 years ago, I had a business partner, and we were doing interactive CD-ROMs at the time. Okay, so this is like way a long time ago. And there was a technology called Director, Macromedia Director.
Oh, yes.
Macromedia was bought
Oh,
by, eventually became Flash, which, whatever, Adobe bought them. But Director had a programming language. It was click and drag to make very simple animations happen. But if you learned the programming language, which was called Lingo, you could make anything happen. It was a true programming, or scripting language. And my business partner at the time was doing these interactive CDs. I was more of a video guy at the time, but he was a terrible programmer, or he just never, I guess he didn't love it and he wasn't motivated enough to learn it. And so we landed a contract to do an interactive CD, a fairly complicated one. And so I had to learn this stupid thing. And by the way, this is before Google. And so the only way to learn was to read books. I mean, learning programming, reading books sucks. Let me just tell you that.
Very
and
difficult.
On top of that, learning programming on your own is like impossible, my memory was, because you make a mistake, which happened like 87,000 times a day. Well, now what? I don't freaking know. There was no Google to turn to, no Substack, none of these places to go to. So long story short, I eventually figured it out. And there were online forums, like, thank goodness. And so you'd work out problems, you'd make phone calls to people maybe, but it was horrible. Like, it was so painful I remember the pain, which is by the way, I think why I'm a good teacher now, because I remember what
Yeah.
it's like to learn something that's really hard to learn.
Yeah, it's
Um,
valuable.
but eventually I learned it, and I became a programmer. Like eventually I love programming now. So I learned to love it. Now there a scenario where I might have only ended up hating it, hating it, and hating it, and never ever got over that? I suppose. In which case, you know what? Change your career. Like,
I was
if
just
you
gonna
truly
say,
hate your
like,
life, yeah,
yeah, like that. Like when you, so there is a strong dislike for boring content, right? There, like I can get like, okay, I got to know certain networking protocols. It makes me like my eyeballs hurt. I don't want to know any of that, but like there's some core fundamentals I've got to know. But like I hear you describe like you just push through. Like you push
yeah,
through that. But if you're in a constant state of hate, like I can't, or hate's a strong word. I dislike that a lot. I really don't like that. Every time you turn around, it's overwhelming, it's disappointing, and it's making you feel a certain way. I definitely think you need to take a look around at your career and go, okay,
yeah,
is this really where I want to be? And I don't care at what point you are in your career. I think you can have a moment where you decide, hey, if all of the things line up for you everywhere in your life where it has to, like you can change your career if you're disappointed in the things that you're having to do. I didn't say it
that's
was
a fair
easy.
point. Like but if you are a junior person and you have this new thing that's come up, yeah, you need to have some staying power. You do need to have some patience and discipline to get to that point where you can make that sort of wiser decision. Do I just hate this?
Mhm.
This is not for me, or can I power through this? Because it's right over the summit is going to be nirvana, and knowing that where you are in that sort of stretch is difficult.
Yeah,
But
valuable.
There's also a distinction between hating a tool and hating uh, something larger, an
Oh yeah,
enterprise. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So you could be somebody who really liked data visualization, but for some reason really didn't like Tableau or really didn't
yeah,
like Power BI. And that doesn't necessarily indicate a need for a career change. It's a need for a tool shift. So,
yeah,
Right.
right. And so I think that it's important if I primarily work in Power BI, right? But I do try to keep track of what's happening with other tools because I might be trying to do something that a tool shift would give me an advantage,
yeah,
right? It's good to know what can be done in other tools because they're competing with each other. So if you just subscribe to the blog of what's new in the tools you're not using and just glance at the top of it where the important and great stuff is, and it's like, oh, that would be nice to have. But you can also then know at that point you're probably going to get it in the tool you're in if the competitor has it,
Right.
or there's a
yeah,
third party add-in. They just bought a third party add-in and your folks didn't yet. But I think there is a difference. I think when I think about things I've had to learn that I didn't like, I don't have that many examples and I was thinking, Bill, about what you said, that if you learn it well enough, you're going to end up liking it. And I think
yeah,
that may be true for me too, that
Mhm.
things because I go back to the things that I had to learn that I don't particularly enjoy, but none of them was I incredibly deep in. Do you know what
yeah,
I mean?
exactly.
Or it's easier to hate some kind of middle tool. Like, here's the tool that we use for integrating this with this. And the tool's really bad, and I had to learn it to do the integration, but I never have to do it again. I'm integrated.
Oh, I love that too.
Yeah,
That's always a nice thing.
Yeah, we're
yeah,
done. So even though that tool was made to be, was basically, made out of chewing gum, rubber cement,
Some toothpicks.
and some clothes that they found at the side of the road or whatever, because it wasn't going to be a strong tool that needed to be used right by people multiple times. They think, oh, users will put up with this once. I mean, we know this. They don't say it that clearly, but that's the idea. Users will put up with this once. And it's like,
yeah.
that wasn't great software, but I never have to see it again. But I think other
Right.
than that, I think you're right, Bill. Anything I've had to really learn, I've ended up, if not loving, at least admiring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with that assessment. This brings us to a great segue into our next topic because I think when we deal with software, like, you said this, there's a difference between disliking something in the organization or the process, but it's another thing to dislike software. And it's been my adult experience that when you change software in front of people, they don't like it. And part of it is they've figured out how to do the things they do. You've just changed it. And here we go. The fear of the unknown kicks in. And the fear of the unknown can actually be, for some people, debilitating. They can't move forward. They can't go on because they weren't prepared for the unknown. So I want us to talk a little bit about some of Bill's projects coming and how we got into the discussion of the unknown. So Bill, you're about to do a project that's new for you. The content's not new for you. It's an everyday part of your life, but you're writing your first book, right? You're authoring for the first time. Yeah. Congratulations. Yep. And we're sorry.
Thank you.
Anybody that's authored a book understands that sentiment. So again, when we were chatting about this, we're so excited for you to have this opportunity. Like we need you, Bill, to get your knowledge out into any format, right? So that we can consume and learn from it. So I'm so excited for you to be able to do this process. And I know for myself, I have very limited experience as compared to Jenny. But for me, when I started the first book, it was professionally a stretch that I needed. Like I hadn't been professionally pushed, and it had nothing to do with my data skills, but all about my communication of these skills and all of that. And I just learned a lot that I wasn't prepared for. And luckily got a strong team around me to help support me through. But I'm excited for your professional stretch. And I know Jenny and I shared some of our thoughts on here's some things to expect in this process. So tell us about your new book as much as you can tell us, and tell us about your process of dealing with the unknowns that come with doing a project like this.
Okay. So I have to say two things before I get into that.
Okay.
First of all, Ellen posted, I had to learn front page. So I'm talking about hating software.
Old
That's
school.
a good one.
I'm so sorry.
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Exactly. That was one of the worst. I hated front page also.
Right.
The second thing that I wanted to say is I'm going to give you, I think of 4 reactions I get so far when I've told people I'm writing a book. One reaction is, who cares? I don't care. Second reaction is, oh, congratulations. That's really exciting. Actually, I guess there's only 3 really. The third reaction is when I tell people who have written books before, it's oh, I'm so sorry. Exactly what you just said. Everyone who's written a book has said it's going to get painful at some point. And so to the unknowns, the biggest unknown definitely is, how painful exactly, and when is that going to happen? And so, my process to deal with that, all the unknowns, including that, is definitely to talk to people, right? It is definitely to reach out to people I know, like you both, and others who have written books, and just ask a million questions. What is that process going to look like? What is it going to feel like? I called a friend of mine who wrote a book to ask questions about the contract, right? Because literally, I'm signing this contract with this publisher. Some of these terms seem kind of weird to me. Is this normal? Can I negotiate this, et cetera, et cetera? Definitely the process of writing the book. Luckily, because I've created all these courses for LinkedIn Learning and my workshops, et cetera, and I've written, a million blog posts, the process of writing, I'm very comfortable with. Mm-hmm. The process of organizing, learning content and communicating it in a logical, flowing manner that I think people will connect with, and most importantly, actually learn from. I feel comfortable that I can do that. So my biggest fear and unknown is around the long form content. Can I write 60,000 words on this topic? Like, do I really have that much to say? And so the only way I can address that after talking to people and, learning as much as I can from others is to start doing the research. And so
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about earlier. That's one of the things I'm learning this year is all this stuff that I already know. I could just tell my story about what I've been doing for 30 years, which is what this topic is. But I'm also going to do a ton of research so I can back it up with research and say, see,
Love that.
this study was done. It proves that X, and that's why this thing that I do and how I do it actually makes sense. And so the topic, I've been sort of cryptic about it so far, but the topic, broadly speaking, is that, when you work for people, no matter what you're doing, whether you're creating a data dashboard or you're building a house or you're, doing management consulting, it doesn't really matter the realm. You have stakeholders, you have people who you're doing this work for. And, we've probably all heard the term stakeholder management, stakeholder engagement. These are project management terms. But the fact is, everybody doing that work needs to understand what their stakeholders actually want. And the thing that no one ever talks about is that, first of all, a lot of people don't bother doing that because they figure that the project manager is going to worry about that. And maybe more importantly, what no one really realizes that the stakeholders don't know what they want themselves. They don't know what they want or need. And so the best among us who do whatever work we do are able to help stakeholders figure out what they actually want and need. It's like therapy. And then eventually, deliver on it. But so it's that process of helping them really get to the real understanding of what is actually needed is what the book is really focused on.
I'm so excited. I think it's going to be great. And there is literally no doubt in my mind, heart, soul that you have everything you possibly need and then some to write a book like this. The one thing I can tell you to prepare for, and this is my standard joke, is I don't know why they call it writing when it's really a lot of reading.
Right.
Like
and editing, right?
I read so, and I read, I'm an avid reader. I don't read, novels or things like that, but I'm reading constantly, but rereading and rereading and rereading and reading again. Like you gotta build an endurance for that. And I was not prepared for that. That was an unknown to me. And maybe I should have done better. Like I had an author that one time I called them, they were in the midst of writing, and I called to talk about something on a database design. And they were like, I'm ready to be done with this stupid book. I got to be finished with this book. And I was like, oh, wow, you're writing a book. How are you not excited? And then when I hit that moment in mine, I called him. So you remember that time? Yeah. So
I just found that spot you were standing in.
Yeah. I now know your full feelings. Like I didn't really fully understand because that was such a perplexing reaction. Like my dealings with him had never been like that. And so but then I hit that wall myself and just thought, this is a thing. So I love the fact that, one of your approaches to dealing with the unknowns is like going to seek out people who have been through it, who can give you advice on the different things that you can look out for.
It's sort of like serial mentorship is an important concept, I think, if we've never talked about it. I mean, people talk about, I have a mentor. One has never been enough because as what I need to know changes, I need somebody different who can help me. And you know what I mean? So Bill's getting mentors right now that are people who probably were of limited value when some of the other work you were doing, but they're worth asking questions of now. And I think sometimes one of the more courageous things I've managed to do when I was doing something really new is to ask somebody, would you be my mentor? Would you mentor me through, would you be my mentor for the next 3 months? I never ask anybody to do it for a long time because then it seems like, well, does that mean I have to help pay for your college? Or it's like, it seems like too deep of an ask, but would you mentor me for the next 3 months is a reasonable ask to make of lots of people who are, if you're clear what you want, who will help you do that.
Yeah.
Well, to the point about unknowns, right? The point about unknowns though, is like, I don't know what I don't know, right? I don't know what I need. I don't know what I want. So broadly having like a mentor who you can just turn to and say, I'm clueless right now about 800 things. help guide me through that to help me figure out what I need.
Yes.
It's all actually similar to what the book is about. But
Yeah.
my problem has always been that I'm terrible at asking for help. I always have been.
Yeah.
So this goes to
Mhm.
learning styles. My learning style is go open a book, go Google it, go blah, 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 blah. And not that I'm smart and I figured it out on my own, because I end up finding other people who've done something, but I don't generally pick up the phone and call, but it is the smartest thing you can do, because, it's like going in-person conferences. You said, like, what's the value of in-person versus just, do the streaming thing? No, there's a difference. And that those
Mhm.
live conversations, especially when you don't even know what you need to know, are critical, because that back and forth is invaluable.
It's sort of like the question, what am I missing?
Yeah.
Right? It's that question sort of over and over again. And if the person, and that's a question you can't answer for yourself.
Yeah.
That's
You really-
yes. You cannot.
What am I missing? It's like, if you knew, you wouldn't be asking.
Right.
The fact that you're asking means you don't know. And sometimes it's, I'm sorry. Sometimes it's just sort of the thing where the thing you don't know is the really ridiculous thing, right?
Yeah.
The
Right.
the silly thing, like the story about the guy who takes back the great big shop tool that's like the Mark IV or something, because he said, I was told when I bought this that I was going to be able to make cabinets, and I was going to make. He said, I've had this for 6 months. I can't make a damn thing. And the guy in the service department says, well, just a second. And he turns on it, and he goes, whoa, what's that noise? Right? What do I not know that's just so critical, but I could easily overlook because I come to it with my own viewpoint,
Yes.
right?
Well, and I think sometimes too, people, like, especially if they're talented in one area, and depending on their personality, they believe they know everything, and sometimes they can't even see their gaps. They can't even
Yeah.
see their blind spots. And so they're not prepared for the unknown. And that scares me. But I just keep thinking about, like, just hearing Bill describe is really, to me, a hallmark of displaying critical thinking skills.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because I have a chapter on critical thinking, and
Yeah.
I'm doing the research on critical thinking right now.
Don't you
And
think
what I
this kind of
discovered-
fits in?
100%. Like, it's absolutely a key part of it. And what the research study that I literally just read 3-4 days ago was that critical thinking is not a generalized skill.
No.
There is no such
No.
thing as critical thinking. Critical thinking is
Wow.
context specific, domain specific.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I can be a very good critical thinker about, data visualization. I know all the right questions to ask. I know what I'm missing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But ask me to, build a skyscraper, I'm going to miss everything. I have no clue what that's about. Ask me how to make a burrito, I'm on it. Ask me how to make, some other thing. So if it's not a generalizable skill, then you cannot know what you don't know when you're truly in a new domain. So I'm in this new domain of book writing. There's some things that are familiar. I know how to create content. I know how to create learning information,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know how to create 60,000 words and cite resources and da-da-da-da-da. I certainly don't know how to market the damn thing. It is domain specific. And so recognizing when you're on new territory, even if you are, like you said, an expert, or, you think you know your stuff over here, you don't know it over there. So it's not only learning that skill, but it is learning all the context around that skill, so you know where to look for help.
So we had talked about top performers in some episode a long time ago, and in the studies around top performers, you could have a top performer in one area, and then you move them to another area, assuming top performance, and then they fail miserably. Talking about top performance, so it kind of struck me, like when you were talking about like critical thinking, you could do it over here, but you don't have the domain knowledge over here. It's kind of like a fresh reset. But I would say, if you can critically think at all in any domain, there are some basic critical thinking things that you can do, right? Like in your case,
muscle memory.
You critically thought through, well, I don't know this. I don't know this. Sometimes
Yeah.
I encounter people who have no critical thinking in any domain because they haven't been tapped. They
Yeah.
haven't been required to critically think through solving a problem. So I know we spend a lot of time trying to just figure out how can we unlock those critical thinking. Like you said, it's not a skill, but it is a thing.
It is
So
a thing. And you definitely learn how to, it's recognizing when you're missing something and then knowing a process to follow to go about finding it out, I guess. And so yeah, it's not,
that's
yeah, the skill
right.
isn't generalizable, the specifics aren't generalizable, but the basics of can I think critically, yeah, there is some muscle memory that I'll have to do more research to to declare that to be true, but it does seem like, yeah,
We'll
logically
let
that
you
makes
we'll
sense.
let you get through writing and rereading that section multiple times, and maybe we can have an episode on critical thinking after
There you
your
go.
research. Yeah, and then we can all know
All
what we
right.
don't know. I kind of like
Yeah,
that. That's a good.
there you go.
That's a good jam for sure. I'm a worst case scenario person. I don't know if I'm critically thinking or if I'm just thinking through every possible terrible thing that could happen so that I then have a plan if it happens. I mean, and even it can even be ridiculous for that matter, but like if it's a possibility that it could happen, I need to think about it and I need to think about how would I deal with that.
So it's
You
just like
know,
plan for the worst, but work toward the best kind of thing.
I think it's just like if something goes south, I can't let it all go south.
But you are south, right?
Oh yeah, right, exactly.
What does it mean when something goes south from Birmingham?
Right, like it's going down.
It's underwater soon,
It's
right?
going
Okay.
down. Yeah, it's like okay, so I'm responsible, right? So if I'm responsible for it and I have to put my name behind it and I have to stand for it, like just because there's something, even if it's dramatic, like if there's something that occurred, like I need to have a plan for it. And I think this is what was so upsetting to me about when you guys came here in November and we had all these plans and then we lost the audio. I had not worst case scenarioed that.
Right.
And it bit me big time. And so it's like now I'm almost in overdrive, but I do know that that's part of my process. I mean, it makes me feel confident that, I can't know everything. I can't know the total unknowns, but I can think through. I have enough experience behind me to know, hey, these are some potential worst case scenarios and making plans for those.
A term I came across that comes out of the automotive industry, it's a measure called TGW. It's things gone wrong.
Mm.
So when a car goes through quality control, at the very end, they measure all of this stuff and stuff that wasn't put on right, regardless. It's a TGW count. And at the time that John DeLorean was writing On a Clear Day, You Can See General Motors, the TGW count for GM, Ford, and Chrysler was on average over 100 things wrong on every car.
Mm.
And the average for Japanese auto manufacturers was less than 5, which explains a lot about what's happened ever since then, right? But I like that term TGW, and so I do keep TGW logs. It's like things that have gone wrong in the past, because never again are you going to lose audio, right? But the trick is how you have that list of things that you can share with somebody else and go, this is my list of everything that's been messed up every time I've done X. Don't let any of these X things happen to you, right?
Yes.
So
well, it also it's valuable in teaching other people too, because Think Data, it's not just me and Daniel,
right?
And we have to pass that information along. And so when you've worked in national training franchises and you've worked in training for 24, there's just things that you need to impart down to people. There's no need for them to have to learn it the hard way.
Right.
You can just communicate it to them and tell them to make it.
You've already paid that cost in blood. It should become part of the tradition now, right?
That's right. That's right. I'll be eating black-eyed peas for it. Well, gosh, we're almost we're to the end here. We want to leave some final thoughts before we end our broadcast here.
I do want to say we're gathering next month just because, we're organized now.
Oh my gosh, it's such a good topic.
Right. What is our topic next month?
Can I tell it?
You can tell it because you're excited about it. Go for it.
Personal data in real life. This is where we talk about using data in our everyday real lives. So I am pretty excited about that because we represent a lot of different reasons for data, and then we have a lot of common data, even if it's in different places. So I'm super excited about next month's episode. Yeah, personal data in real life.
Cool. It's always good to be with you all.
Yep. Thank y'all so
Yes,
much.
indeed.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.